we don't know what happened 4,000 years ago. So for me to concretely say there was something or there was nothing is probably a mistake. Do I believe there was nothing? Well, my human brain can't comprehend nothing because we've always had something. So my answer to this question is actually really long and convoluted in the sense that I can't really tell you the answer to that because I wasn't alive when there was nothing. But of course, if there was nothing, I wouldn't be alive. I can't answer the question, really.
Shall I give you my take on this?
Absolutely, I'm really interested to hear this, yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Now your turn.
So when we talk about this conceptual understanding of nothing, this is not nothing as in what some of the scientists are talking about, like Lawrence Krauss, Professor Lawrence Krauss, where there's some kind of virtual fluctuation, quantum fluctuation. This nothing I'm talking about is the philosophical nothing in which this absence of everything. Now, if we understand at least conceptually what this is, that means this nothingness doesn't have anything within it to do anything, to create anything, to produce anything, to manufacture anything, to bring about existence of anything else. Because simply, it's the absence of everything. In general, in our physics, that we understand to do something, you need energy. The nothing that I'm referring to doesn't possess energy, doesn't have energy, doesn't borrow energy because there's nothing there. It was simply nothing at that point. So in a state like this, nothingness will result in nothingness all the time. There will never be something at all, ever. Why? To bring into something, because something, when we say something, for example, you and I, we are matter and energy, interconvertible, right? Yeah, E equals mc squared. So you know this equation very well. So we are matter and energy. This something could not come about by nothing when it was nothingness whatsoever. Because we're talking about energy when we're talking about matter. It can't just pop out from nothingness. Popping out means who's doing the popping out? Who's driving that popping out into existence or popping into existence? From what? So if something exists today, it is not imaginable in a logical, rational sense that there was at one point in the distant past, however distant that was, there was absolute nothingness. Even the atheist philosophers will agree to that point because you can't get something from nothing. It simply cannot happen. This doesn't make any sense. So if this is the case, that we cannot imagine a situation, a time in inverted commas, right? Because time itself is debatable whether it began or it was always there, and which theory of time you follow. So, was there in the distant past absolute nothingness? We will say no, there has to be always something. The very reason is something exists now. We are here now, there has to be always something in the past. So there will always be, no matter how far you go back, there will be eternally something in existence. That is something we can come into this understanding because there cannot be absolute nothingness. And as a Muslim, I do find that the Quran actually mentions this point for us to reflect on it. It says, "Am khuliqu min ghayri shay'in." Were they created from nothingness? And I know that, and you know that, for example, even our existence as a biological creation, there has to be our parents who brought us into existence. So we cannot come from absolute nothingness. This cosmos, with its all substance within it, whether you want to call it just pure energy in its primordial form, it cannot be a result of absolute nothingness at one point. So at least, I think fairly, we can agree, in general terms, there has to be always something in the past.
Well, yeah. I mean, we're going to really deep philosophical questions right now.
I do apologize because that's what I warned you about. Existential questions does lead to these very deep, reflective questions.
This is true, and I mean, I'm not a person who really thinks deep philosophical questions. So when you warned me about this, I thought, let's go ahead. Let's see what happens. If you don't mind, let me sort of frame this in sort of like a more sort of current sense. And I really liked your analogy there when you said we don't come from nothing. As in us personally, right? I told you a few minutes ago that I came from my mother and father who decided to procreate, just like you did, Every one of us here, we all came from a mother and father who decided to procreate. And again, in the modern world, we do have different relationships with different types of people, but human procreation itself obviously does come from female and male parts. But it's an interesting sort of topic you bring up. And it's not something that I can like fathom and try and create an answer to right now for you, because I'm not a philosopher. I'm just a Londoner, right? I can't sort of say, oh yes, there was
they're not mutually
something
exclusive.
in the past. And
being a philosopher and Londoner is not mutually exclusive.
No, that's certainly not. I mean, I'm sure there's loads of philosophers back in the past. But I'd like to think of things that sort of more currently. You know, in our current world that we live in, nothing comes from nothing. And you're right in that sense. You know, everything has to come from something. And how do we sort of improve people's lives in the current world? Let's take philosophy into like the more current sense. And how do we turn, you know, a lot of people in London right now are very unhappy with their lives for a number of reasons. Like there's a lot of poverty, there's also a lot of inequality, but there's also at the same time there's a lot of mental issues, and COVID has obviously made our lives different, let's say that. And personally, I didn't enjoy lockdown. I know a lot of people say they loved lockdown. I personally hated it. But it's not just that. I'm perhaps not the most impoverished person in the world, right? How do we take people who feel like they have nothing and bring them to they have something? And you're right, nobody has nothing. People have got skills, people have got things that they can help themselves with. So we really need to enable people, I think. So taking your philosophical question about existence and existential crisis in general, you're right. Nothing can't create something. We all have something, and each one of us today, you know, no matter how we are, you know, whether we're millionaires or whether we earn £2 a day, we all have something, and we just need a bit of help to make it something else and make it something better. And so for me personally, like, while I'm not answering your question directly because I can't really answer it, I think everybody has something, and we just need to unlock their potential to make it everything.
Okay.
I actually have a question for you. Like, with your philosophy, like your standpoint that we like do not like 100% agree to, but that's probably fine. But what does that make out of you? With this, like maybe like belief. What do you play? Like, what's your role in that? Like, what does that make you, knowing or believing in this? It's like, how do you approach people or life? So, how do you see that? Like,
very intelligent question, and a
like,
meaningful one.
Like, why do you?
Why do we even ask, and why do we even want to inquire about this question? It's to do with, you know, ourselves and, you know, how we feel, how we relate to this cosmos.
Yeah.
Because if I know for sure that I am here created by a creator for a reason, and I do not fulfill that purpose, then what's going to be my outcome? Just imagine, you go to an examination, not knowing what the subject matter is being examined, and you sit there, and then you think, yeah, I'm going to triumph in anything that comes, and then you find out this is a question on cancer chemotherapy. Are you into cancer, Phil?
Really, no.
Right. So, would you be able to answer the questions and then be successful? And very unlikely. Yeah.
But on the terms.
Very
of the
unlikely.
Judge, so.
Very unlikely. So imagine the frustration that you will feel, the discomfort that you will feel, the lack of tranquility and contentment in your heart you will feel in that exam, that you feel that, okay, I am now at a loss. I'm not going to be successful. Yeah. Success in this life is not only knowing who's the best girlfriend or wife or a partner, what is the best job, what is the best restaurant, what's the best thing to wear. Success in this life also means being successful in your purpose in this life. So many of us, we think about death sometimes, not all the time. But if you were to concentrate on the death alone, you realize there is no guarantee when we're going to die. We can die young, or we can live a little bit longer in our old age. So if we die, and then we realize that there was a purpose that we are supposed to fulfill, and it's now too late because death signals the journey to another phase in which there's no point turning back again to do that what you haven't done, what you're supposed to do. How would you feel? You would not feel tranquility in your heart, even thinking about death and being dead in that feeling. So knowing these questions about our very purpose of life not only gives you the tranquility, peace, and comfort in your heart, but it then gives you an outlook to live in this life, and you'll find that outlook is one of some working in the harmony of this universe. Because the